What is up, everybody? Welcome back to yet another live stream. My name's Lewis, also known as Mr. Camera Junkie, and as always, thank you for hanging out here with me on the Camera Junkie live stream. I'm going to need one quick second because last minute of order, I had to do some fatherly duty, so I just need to step right over here for a quick second. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. All right, there we go. And we are back. Episode number 112, 112 consecutive weeks of the Camera Junkie live stream. And as always, thank you for hanging out here with me. Why can't I hear anything? This headpiece is really giving out on me, but regardless, let's not worry about that. It's the Camera Junkie live stream. It is 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, hanging out here with the Camera Junkie crew. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about Sony's new release, their 20 to 70 millimeter f4 lens, and who is it really, made for, and if you should pick one up. But before we get into that, let's go to the chat to see exactly who is here. And D is in the house, Marine X. Okay, and as always, we need to fix the first comment. So let's unlock the scene. Let's make it the appropriate size. Surprising, you beat out Mr. Paul Duncan. Oh, he's second there. All right, so let's lock that scene. And Marine X says, this lens is getting Grandpa excited. Is this lens comparable to the 16 millimeter to 55 millimeter G APS-C lens? I use that on my A6600. I think the lens could work well with my FX3. Then I could finally sell my 16 to 55. Okay, that's a good question, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. We also have Mr. Moderator saying hello to the fam. And Marine X is saying, what's up, Master Moderator, bro? My live stream last night could have used you, LOL. Open chat to the public and the people were needing to be sent to the upper room. Time out. Some of my mods are slow. That's so funny. Oh, we got Michael's in the house saying Happy New Year, finally getting in live. Hey, thanks for stopping by. It's funny that you happen to be here today because something that I had messed up last week and I want to touch base on this week is that I had mentioned, and I forgot to reiterate on mentioning, that I am going to be in Orlando next weekend and I'm going to be doing a little get together. We've been putting all the pieces together and everything was kind of finalized just last week, and I put it at the top of my notes list for the live stream and just totally neglected it. Like it was what I named my note, the Orlando meetup. So yes, next week between the times of 8 and 10 o'clock, and then, I'm going to be working somehow to finish that up and go live at 10, maybe a little after because of what's going to be going on. But I will be in the Orlando area. I will be at World of Beer. It's I have the address here. I will get all that information down, but let me pull it up on my phone real quick so that I don't mess it up, because there's various locations, and it's going to be at the 7750 Palm Parkway, Orlando, Florida, 32836. And that will be the location for next week's meetup. I'm just going to be spending the day out there with some family, friends. We're going to be doing the meetup. So if anyone could make it, hey, feel free. We're going to be hanging out there for a couple of hours. Then I'm going to figure out how I do the live stream on the road. And that will conclude next week's events. So if you're able, I know it's kind of like I mentioned it a month ago and now it's kind of short notice, which is why I wanted to punch myself in the face last week. I was like, I can't believe I totally forgot to mention it completely. But yeah, so from 8 to 10, Camera Junkie crew, we're going to be at Once again, the World of Beer in Orlando, Florida, and the address is 7750 Palm Parkway, Orlando, Florida, 32836. So if you are available and you have the time, you'll be able to meet up with me there and, a couple of friends just the same. So looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun next weekend. It's probably going to be the first weekend since I was in the New York tri-state area up there that I'm leaving South Florida. So definitely something to look forward to. All right. And he's saying very cool. Says pretty sure I know where it is. Yeah, but also when I started looking into it, there was various locations. So I'm being very specific because that's the one that I'm going to be at. But yes, now this is the portion of the stream where I get into my soliloquy about, the today's subject, kind of the recording of the Camera Junkie podcast. But before that, actually, let me take a look at this question that D left us here. I'm going to go back to that. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to that question because I think it'll be better fit to fit in towards the end of it. So I'm just going to go through my notes, go through the soliloquy, and see where we end up. With that being said, we're going to get things started. All right. In 5, 4, 3. What's up, and welcome back to the Camera Junkie podcast. My name's Louis, also known as Mr. Camera Junkie, where I remind you to upgrade your skills before your gear. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that on the introduction to the podcast, but that's usually how I start off all of my live streams. We'll see how it works. Well, today's subject in hand is Sony recently released the new 20 to 70 millimeter f4 lens. It's a G-rated lens, not G-Master, but knowing Sony's high quality in their G lenses, it's basically a minor step down as far as aperture goes when it comes to the lens being an f4, but the sharpness and the quality of the images, I would not fathom that it is up there with the G-Master series. So, who is this lens for? It is a very intriguing lens for me. The 20 to 70 could be what we consider our standard zoom range when it comes to lenses. Our more traditional lenses that we use as a carry around for photography and video is usually been our 24 to 70 millimeter. This one being 20 millimeters is just that bit wider. And some people will be like, it's not necessary, which in certain cases I could agree, because the difference between 20 to 24 is not that great. But if you happen to find yourself in a location where you don't have the physical room to take an extra step back or two to actually make up the difference between the 20 to 24, then that could really make all the difference when it comes to your photography if you're using it for events or something in that manner. But as an everyday walk around lens, it kind of has me a little perplexed because of the simple fact that it is a lot more expensive to its counterparts. So why would I say that? Now, the 20 to 70 is a great range, especially where there have been other companies, namely Tamron, who has actually come out with a difference. Instead of actually going a bit wider, they jumped up in the zoom range and they offer a 28 millimeter to 75 millimeter. So that actually is shrinking your field of view or on the wide ends and adding a bit to the telephoto at the 75 millimeter length. And that has been an amazing lens, compact, lightweight, and you get amazing images out of it. But at the same time, removing the discrepancy between 24 to 20, but the difference between 20 and 28 is quite substantial, especially when it comes to this type of lens. Now, A more popular lens that would be going and continuing into the telephoto side for photography is a traditional 70 to 200. So that's where, a 75 millimeter will kind of cross over into that same focal length. But it's basically what a lot of professionals have carried in their kit to actually give them the range to go from extremely wide to extremely telephoto all the way in the 200 range, basically being able to do everything that they need with just two lenses, which is the way that a lot of portrait and event photographers seem to build out their kit, so that they're able to cover every type of range that they might encounter while they're doing their jobs. Where it leaves me a little perplexed is because when it comes to photography, the only substantial difference that I see in this new lens, and this is my opinion, is the linear XD motors. So let's get into a little specs about this lens. It is a 20 to 70. Like I said, it's an f4 constant aperture. So it's not the brightest or the fastest lens, not even at a 2.8. If this lens would have been a 2.8, it would have been in that G Master category. But I digress. It is an f4 to f22. So also pretty good for those people who are looking to photograph sun stars. It's a full frame lens, which is, I don't know if I had mentioned it before. It is a full frame lens with dual XD linear type motors. Now, that's where I really think that this is the difference of this lens. The biggest upgrade or update to this type of lens, I don't even think is the extra 4 millimeters that you get on the wide end. It has to do with those linear motors, allowing you to move the elements within this lens, which are quite plentiful. You have 16 elements in 13 groups, and you're able to move all that glass within the lens itself pretty fast with these new motors. They're able to handle the weight and give you precise autofocus with a new lens. So if that's what you're looking or what you were missing within your kit, then I can honestly tell you this is the lens for you. Now, another thing that really benefits these XD linear motors is videography. So if you're doing autofocus for video, this is really going to help with that, because no matter how fast your subject could be moving within the shot, your focus motors will never have to actually work overtime or work too hard to keep your subject in focus. So if those were the two things that you were kind of missing within your photography or videography, then I would highly recommend you look into this lens. It is priced at around $1,100, which is where it starts, I guess people's gears start grinding in their mind when they start hearing about the price, because you're not that far off from a G Master when you're looking at $1,100 for the lens. And the next lens that would be, or that you would consider within the category away from the kit lens that Sony has, is the lens that I actually have, which is the Sony Zeiss 24 to 70 millimeter f4. Now, these two lenses are very similar, and the Zeiss aspect, or the Zeiss lens, is available still today for $900. So a $900 lens compared to a $1,500 lens is a big difference, but an $1,100 lens to a $1,500 lens is not that much. So putting all of that into perspective, the Zeiss f4 has one thing that this new Sony 20 to 70 does not, which is the optical stabilization. So it actually has OSS built into the lens. Now, I believe it was last week where I had referenced a Sigma lens that I used to own that did not have optical stabilization, and when it comes to photography, it makes all the difference, or it could make all the difference in the world in the telephoto range, because you're able to get really sharp images because you're basically asking your shutter to be your image stabilization. You're cranking up the shutter to a speed where you're freezing time in a fraction of a second, so that it's giving yourself the ability to like remove blur and get a nice sharp image no matter how telephoto you are. It's great for wildlife, sports, motorsports, different types of photography. But at the same time, that would be the worst thing that you could experience if you're doing that for video, right? If you're doing that for video, it's going to be a much harder time to not have image stabilization within the lens and try to get a decent image, something that's not completely shaking, especially at the telephoto side. That's why you have lenses that built it in. Now, the reason why this new Sony 20 to 70 millimeter doesn't have it built in is because another feature of Sony camera bodies is that they have steady shot inside, which is another play on image stabilization, but it's built into the body, or what we call IBIS, internal image body. Did I say that right? In body image stabilization. That's what IBIS stands for. So yes, IBIS, in body image stabilization. So the Sony camera bodies carrying this are now getting so good that it's allowing them to remove that feature from their lenses to make them faster in focusing, and also less weight to carry around when you want to use a zoom type lens. So having that in mind, let me focus and not lose myself here. Yeah, so basically having the ability to have image stabilization within the camera bodies gives you the ability to remove that feature from the lens themselves. Now, what this does is, like Mr. D was asking before, that he's using it with an APS-C body, then I wouldn't recommend this lens in particular unless that camera body has its own steady shot inside or image stabilization system, because this lens doesn't carry it. Now, my Zeiss 24 to 70 has it within the lens, and when it's paired with a camera body that has the steady shot inside, it pairs up with that stabilization to get you an even higher level of stops when it comes to your image stabilization for both video and photography. And it is a great piece of kit, because even if I decide to use it with an APS-C camera that on Sony's side traditionally doesn't have image stabilization within the camera bodies, unless you are in the highest end flagship A6600 or A6500 type camera bodies, you're not going to have that steady shot inside. So if you don't have it within the lens, you're kind of SOL. And that's why I would recommend a lens with OSS built into it, like the Zeiss 24 to 70 when it comes to videography, bar none. Like without a doubt, I will recommend the optical stabilization because it will only make your life easier. So I had mentioned before that this new lens has 16 elements and 13 groups. It also has 9-bladed aperture ring, so that it is going to give you nice, creamy, circular bokeh when it comes to your photography. It also has a 72 millimeter filter thread and weighs in just a bit over a pound. But when it comes to the price tag that you're dealing with on this lens is where I really feel that, not that you're not getting your money's worth, but depending on your situation, there's a lot more options available to you at a much cheaper price. Like I mentioned, the 28 to 70, if you do not need to be as extremely wide as 20 millimeters, is a lens that I would recommend. I used it myself, and when I had it on my camera, borrowing it from Doc Rock, I had it on my camera for about a week, and I had no need to switch out to anything else because it was doing everything that I needed for both video and photography. And that lens as well does not have image stabilization, but the price at around $700 is a huge difference when you're saying it's completely $1,000 less than the G Master, and a good $400 less than the lens that we're talking about now, the new 20-70. The Zeiss, which I love Zeiss colors and is the lens that I have, I actually bought that on the used market, and I think I found it for like $600. So not even going into it, but for my needs, that lens is more than good enough. And I stay amazed every time that I use it for B-roll shots of like items that I'm covering and things like that, because the combination of the OSS in the lens and in the body give me really good, like smooth, creamy B-roll shots that I'm always happy to use in the highest quality possible in 4K. It's an amazing piece of kit, and because my needs do not exceed that, I don't see myself, like craving this new lens. So now, who is this lens for? I think I mentioned it just a little while ago. If you are into the photography space or in the video space and you're looking for a budget all-around lens and you actually don't have one, right, that's suiting your needs, I would say, yeah, you cannot beat this lens with a stick, because you're going to get the latest and greatest, and it's like time-tested technologies from a company that we know and love, Sony, putting their best foot forward with their new faster, and I really do emphasize, in faster autofocusing lens. So now, if the autofocusing is not an issue that you're having with the Sony ecosystem and the cameras and lenses that you're using right now, then I don't see this being as a must-have piece of kit, because there are a lot of different options within Sony themselves and third parties, from Tamron to you name it, Sigma. There's a variety. And just last week we were talking about Sigma's 60mm to 600, and the fact that that's basically within the same price range of this lens really goes to show you of what you can get for your money. And that's also another brand that I highly recommend, and I use every week, Sigma lenses. So those are my thoughts on the new Sony 20-70mm lens. I know for a fact it'll get you amazing images, amazing quality, amazing sharpness, light, compact, a good budget sort of entry level for not being a G Master type lens for the Sony ecosystem. And if this is a lens that you've been looking into, or another note, if you were saving up for the G Master because you wanted to step up from the kit lens, this is also another good alternative that you can get to, that can get you a lot of great results without having to spend the big price tag on their latest and greatest lenses. But all of this to be said, and I want to put it with a little asterisk, right? Because I also do want to emphasize that if you decide to pick up this lens, then I want to emphasize on the fact that I believe and I feel that investing within the lens over the camera body is what you should do. Like I've said before, glass before ass, right? The camera body, or the lens, is more important than the camera body. And there's different terms that we've used throughout photography and videography, like, sayings like you date the body, but you marry the lens. And the reason why is because my example to you was that I'm still using the Zeiss 24-70 lens, and it's 2023, and I'm still just like so happy with the results that I get with this setup. And that lens is 13 years old, right? Or no, 10 years old, sorry. It is 10 years old today. It came out in 2013 with Sony A7 Mark 1. And these sets of lenses came out in conjunction with that camera body, and we've moved on from camera bodies all the way till, we've got plenty of Sony camera bodies, but I am still using that lens. And if I were to get the latest and greatest camera body, I'm still going to be using that lens. So that's why we always say you date the bodies, but you marry the lens. And right now I'm married to the Zeiss 24-70, and it's been a happy little marriage. And for that, I say, unless you really know that this is going to be your next marriage, I would tell you to look into all of your options before you dive in. And that's my take. With that, today we're going to be talking about Cities Ga. That's still not centered. Let me see if I could fix that right now. I'm going to try to unlock it. Let's move it. Perfect. Let's lock it again. There we go. Boom. And today's Cities Ga, channels that I think you should go and watch. Let's move over there. Boom. It's like I know what I'm doing, right? None other than Chris Brockhurst. Now, Chris is another Canadian content creator in the photography niche. He's also another Sony shooter. Let me say that again. He's another Sony shooter. He's got a lot of great content. As you can see, he pretty much focuses on everything when it comes to photography and videography. He also does real estate photography and videography. So if you're looking into those types of fields, I highly recommend you check him out. Like I said, he's another Canadian content creator, which I've mentioned before. I think they have like a built-in cheat code, right, to knowing how to use YouTube, because every wintertime they kind of get locked in their homes. So they have to figure out a way to entertain themselves and keep their minds going. So they sit in front of the computer and they're able to gobble up all this information, while us Floridians over here are still rolling around in January and February, and they're over there bundled up in snow, learning how to perfect the YouTube algorithm. But that is another content creator that, if you haven't heard of, I highly recommend you check him out. Once again, is part of the same type of profile, right? Someone that I find humorous, educational, and just seems to be an all-around cool guy. My interactions with Chris, though light, have been really cool, and I would highly, highly recommend you check out his channel. So this week's Cities Ga, channels that I think you should go and watch, is Mr. Chris Brockhurst. And as always, I will be leaving links in the description so that you can find these creators. And boom, that is it for this week's Camera Junkie podcast. Thank you as always for listening. If you have any questions, please make sure you reach out to me. I will be happy to answer them here on the podcast. And with that being said, have a great week, and I will talk to you next time. And that is it. And that's how we do a podcast recording. We're going to go right back to the main shot and go back to Mr. Marine X's question that he had there. His lens is getting him excited, comparable to the 16 to 55 G. Now, to answer this question, the 16 to 55 is more like a 24 to 70. So it really depends on how you look at it. Actually, the 55 would be like more 24 to 78, I think, but I digress. So it is going to be pretty much the same focal length, so to speak, in that aspect. But the thing is, if you were to try to use this lens on your APS-C camera, it will no longer give you that focal range. So it will work in that aspect that you would get the same type of imagery as a 16 to 55 millimeter G lens on your APS-C. But the thing about the Sony cameras is that if you were to take the G lens being made for APS-C and put it on the FX camera, the one mount system that Sony has, the FX is going to understand that it's an APS-C lens and adjust its settings to maximize and get the best image of it. So if you're using it on the FX, you're still going to get that same type of focal range, that 24 to 70, because the lens is designed for APS-C. But if you were to go to an actual 20 to 70 millimeter for the full frame, that is the equivalent that you're going to get on your FX3, but it's no longer going to kind of hinder the performance of that camera and making it APS-C itself. It's going to get that same range, 20 to 70, in a full frame. So the imagery is going to be that much better using that lens because you're using the entirety of your sensor. Now, once you have that 20 to 70, if you were to try to mount it onto the APS-C, that's where the crop factor magnification aspect creeps in, because you're no longer dealing with a 16 to 55, you're dealing with a 20 to 70. And now you're going to have to put the 20 millimeter at 1.5, right? So it should act like a 30 millimeter. So you'll be doing that. And if my math serves me correctly, at the 70 would be 105. So you will effectively have a lens that will act no longer like a 24 to 70, but a 30 to 105, which is going to give you more room on the telephoto side. But like I mentioned before when I was talking about my soliloquy, there's not that much difference between 24 and 20, right? Going backwards, or that much even between 24 going to 28. But the difference between 20 and 28, those 8 millimeters, huge difference, especially when it comes to the imagery, and both for photography and video. So hopefully that helps and you making your decision. But you know, if you do end up picking up this lens, you might not be selling your 16 to 55 anyway. That's the only thing. So if you can have one, do both, right? You know, if you're okay the way that you are right now, and you're looking to get a full frame and f4, I would probably tell you to look into like the one that I have, the Zeiss, or maybe even the Tamron, because the Tamron is faster focusing, maybe, and that's what I'm saying, because I really don't have a problem with my Zeiss, but that's just saying that it's a newer construction, newer build, and newer technology in that Tamron lens, that it probably would autofocus faster or anything than the Zeiss. But at the same time, is this new lens worth all the extra money when you can get similar results that nobody is gonna really tell the difference at the end of the day? Because, you know, we as camera junkies, we like we nerd out on this stuff, but at the end of the day, throughout all of my productions, throughout everything that I produce, I've never once heard the things that we argue about, like, is Final Cut better than Premiere, right? If you make a good video, nobody's gonna ask, what did you use to edit it? Because what you use to edit it is the last thing that matters when it comes to the final product of your video. So whether you're a Premiere, DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut editor, you're an editor, because as soon as you press upload, right, and it goes anywhere, or you deliver it to a client, they're not gonna care. The only time that those things matter is when you're building out your team, or that you're going to be part of somebody else's team, right? so that you're all on the same type of language. And that is, if like me as an editor, if I'm going to send my footage to get color graded somewhere else, which I'm not. Currently, I'm not. But if I were to be sending out files to be color graded away from me, then that's when I have to really determine what systems are we using and if they match. Because if that's really not the case at hand, then there's really no reason for, people to be getting all up in arms or really upset on what they're using or what they have, so to speak. So that just brings it all the way back to, never, not once have I heard, like, oh, I can tell you that you use the Final Cut for this, or I can tell you use DaVinci Resolve for that, or which lens did you use? This photo looks like it's a G Master lens, right? That's all for us, right? And for our ease of use and our convenience and our making sure that we're gonna get the shot that we want, right? For the environment that we put ourselves in. So depending on your environment should be depending on how you make your decisions. So once again, hopefully that answered that question and it helps out the information. So, okay. Okay, so I just got to your question right here. And it says, totally agree with your point on the 20 to 28. I use a Sony 28 to 135 PC power zoom, G for B-roll because it's parfocal, but I won't walk around with it. And my Zeiss, my Zeiss 16 to 35 f4 has me wanting more. Well, you see, like in that range, I would tell you, because you have the Zeiss 16 to 35, you might be more inclined to pick up that same Zeiss, 24 to 70 because the colors are going to match. They were made the same time, so all of those lenses came out at the same time, and that's kind of like their little set for the Sony ecosystem. Okay, we have David Harvey Official asking a question. It says, will you consider doing a Sony ZV-1F in studio live stream? Absolutely, yes, because that's actually one of the cameras that I have, so I own this camera, and it just depends. Now I have a question for you, man. How would you like to see it? Would you like to see it directly plugged in at 720, right? At 720, just one cable connection, easy for the average user, or would you like to see it connected via HDMI, doing the 4K and giving the max quality? So, or maybe I could do both. I'll just have to switch them out. Law is in the house saying hello to all. So is Kevin saying hello. And he says, has everyone remembered to hit that like button? That's right. If you haven't done so, please make sure you just go and you hit that like button. Is highly appreciated. Okay, so I love this. Everybody's saying hi to each other. Kathy's in the house saying hello to the junkies. Okay, Michael says he's got the Tamron 20 to 40, and I think that's one of their newer releases. I test out the autofocus before my live class lectures, and putting in a hand in front of the lens is super fast, going back and forth to my face. And I use the FX30. And if you can, what's the price on that lens, Michael? Because that is another great alternative, that could be for people looking for that little extra bit of wideness and not looking for all of the telephoto. Okay, so you see, D says, I would like to see that ZV-1F as a B camera during the live stream, just to see how it looks in 720. Okay, well, I'm going to do that right now because there's nothing stopping me. And I actually did that, I think it was in December last year, just not too long ago when I got it. And I was like, the fact that I can just plug it in. And if you don't know, I use Ecamm, right? And the power of Ecamm allows you to just connect this and be able to bring it onto the live stream live so that you can see the difference. And another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to compare it, right? And put it side by side with my current camera. So we'll see what that looks like. How would I do this? First, I need to go onto my computer and disconnect this hard drive. That's what I need to do. All right, now that we have this hard drive disconnected, I have that USB-C port available. Okay, don't drop stuff. Okay, so let's see how I'm gonna do this. Do I have a tripod type thing device? I don't see it, so I'm not gonna worry about it. Okay. And this is how we're gonna do it. Check this out. The ease and convenience of the Sony ZV-1F is the fact that you literally only have to plug in one cable to get it to be recognized as your webcam. So I'm just gonna open the ZV-1F, and me being a camera junkie, I have the settings in manual, but I'm gonna switch that up right now. And I put it back into intelligent auto. So intelligent auto feature completely takes all control of the camera. I'm not doing anything as far as shutter speed or anything. I'm not trying to do exposure. It's doing everything in its power. All right. And now I'm going to take a USB-C cable, USB-C to USB-C, and one end I'm going to plug it into the front port on my Mac Studio. And here live, I'm just going to show you guys. Let me see if it picks it up. Right, as soon as I connect the USB-C cable to the camera, it will recognize it and ask you what you want to do. And it says select USB mode connect. And we're going to select live stream. And as soon as you click onto it, it's going to tell you that the USB streaming function always operates in movie modes, which is fine. You could ask for it to not send that information to you again, yada yada. But now the camera is connected. Okay. Okay, I don't think that's what I was trying to get accomplished. Okay, perfect. Let's not do that. Okay, we're back on. We're connected there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally put this camera in front. Let me take the mic fro off, okay? And I'm putting this camera. Let me see if I could prop it up. Maybe with the mic fro. And you know what? This is going to be a lot better if I were showing this camera. There we go. So everyone looking now, right? I am taking my ZV-1F and I am putting it basically on my teleprompter. If I can finagle it. Come on. But we're doing it on the fly. Let's see. Okay, that, from what I'm seeing here, that looks pretty good as far as the framing goes. Now, I don't know how it's going to block off, but you can see here through the live stream, I literally just have one cable connected. So hypothetically, it's on a tripod, but I would put it on a tripod, right? Somehow, or connect it to your computer, laptop, whatever. And that's it. It's already recognized through Ecamm, or basically through your computer, that it is a webcam. And now what I'm going to do is just switch onto it. So I'm going to go back to the main shot. This little blockage here at the bottom of the screen, that's the camera itself. And now I'm going to switch to it. And it is literally on my camera list as the Sony ZV-1F. And this is the image that we're getting from the Sony ZV-1F. Straight out of camera, intelligent auto. So this is zero thinking involved. This is the image that you'd be getting directly out of the camera. Yep, and I'm just making sure if it's doing like the blurry background mode, you know, the f2 aperture. But the image that you're seeing now is of the Sony ZV-1F in 720 USB webcam mode, connected directly to my Mac Studio and being broadcast through Ecamm Live. Quick, simple, easy setup, and this is the quality that you can get out of it. This mic is just a bit much in this shot. And that's it. And that's the difference. So now let's see. I'm going to switch back to my main camera. Okay. And let's see. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add another camera, right? Yeah, let's just do that. We're going to go on the fly. We're going to go over here. We're going to add another camera source. Boom. And we're going to switch that camera source to the ZV-1F. Pow with a frat. And as we can see, it just seems like the colors are a bit different. You know, we're going completely auto, but that's the difference. If I was actually manipulating this camera, I would make some changes. But one thing that we can change right off the bat, right? So we can see one thing that we can do that we can change here is not that, the camera effects. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to go into live demo mode. Boom. So now we're in live demo mode. We're not going to worry about that right now. Yeah, you guys can still hear me. You can see me. Right here on the right hand side, we have our camera effects. So what I'm able to do with these camera effects is adjust the brightness of that image. So as you can see, the little box. So I'm just adjusting the colors of this right now and see if we could adjust the temperatures a bit. We're going to warm it up. I am literally just eyeballing all of this so you can see. We go into tint and we start seeing, you know, we're going to have to give it a little bit more magenta. So we got a -5 saturation. Let's bump that up a bit. And gamma, let's add a little bit for contrast. Okay, so temperature. And let's bring down some brightness so that I don't look so shiny in the forehead. And boom. And now we've adjusted that. We can finish that up by closing out that window. And now I'm going to stop live demo mode. And now we go back to this image here. As you can see, that's just some small adjustments and what the image can look like. So I can go back to the main shot here. We could just remove this and then once again change this now to the ZV-1F. And this is with some of those color adjustments already done. Now, if you are starting out and you're looking to get items like this, I could recommend this with a system like Ecamm because it actually has a pretty decent microphone built into the camera. So the ZV-1F has a 3-capsule directional microphone, and it was for my Christmas Eve live stream. I did not bring any other microphones and I just used the onboard microphone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the microphones right now so that you can hear what that sounds like. Okay. Well, that didn't work. And that's probably just because I added it completely secondary as a source. But what I was trying to do was get my crisp audio to pick up the ZV-1F. But the emphasis that I want to make is that your audio system will pick up the ZV-1F's audio so that you're able to use the onboard microphone, which 9 times out of 10 is going to be a lot better than the like built-in microphone that you're going to get on a laptop, say if you were using this on the road or as a mobile system. So for example, I was on that, like, I was at my sister's house doing the live stream on Christmas Eve, so I did not want to bring anything more. I brought the ZV-1F and my laptop was able to connect, and the cable will continuously power the camera, so you don't have to worry about it dying. It's receiving the high definition 720 signal, and then it also, you're able to utilize the microphone out of the camera as your built-in or your spoken microphone, which will sound better than the one built into basically any laptop. So it's a pretty good system and kit that you're able to utilize very easily if you're gonna be mobile or like on the road, kind of like run and gun setups. So, and this is what you can do. That this is the whole thing. I can do an entire live stream like this and not really have an issue, right? Well, you guys let me know what you think about the quality of this camera in particular with what I was able to show you. So that is the power of the Sony ZV-1F. Now, I was going to think about it, like, should I try to connect the HDMI? Not today. I'll make either a video or a live stream with showing those differences, but I would not be surprised in the bump of quality, because we're going to go past 1080 and go all the way to 4K when you connect it via the HDMI. So if this is good enough image for you now, connecting it via HDMI is only going to make it that much better. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and switch things back. Boop. And disconnect this camera so that I could read your comments, because I put it on my monitor here and that's where I hear you guys. All right. It says, wow, definitely got to go into the manual mode, says D. Says that's why ISO and white balance is doing. Yeah. So that goes to show you, right? Like the huge difference that you can see from auto. But also the other thing is that if I were to come up on a live stream and that's the only image that you get and there's no reference to something better, then that's going to be more than good enough, right? Because you're not going to look at that image and be like completely disgusted unless you're seeing an image like this right before it or directly right after it to be able to notice that difference. So, hey, no, my pleasure, David. Thank you for asking the question, and happy to help. So anything that you need, just make sure that you did it perfectly. You just put a Q colon so that I don't miss it, because sometimes, you guys are always just talking to each other. So says looks better. Yeah, when you do a little bit of the color, and the brightness and taking like the hot spot off of the forehead and stuff like that, you can make it look better. But if I were in manual mode and have all, the white balance dialed in, and it will look even that much better. And once again, that's still at 720. So I can't wait to check it out with the cam link. Yeah, it looks a lot better because I've already done it myself, so I know it's got the power. Says the only thing about 720 is that you can't use eCam to punch in. I do that to create some scenes and have two cameras. Yes, that's a great idea. But yeah, you really can't punch in on 720. You're going to look like 1992, right? You're going to look way, way, way outdated. You'd be like, why does it look like that? So if you don't know what we were just talking about, just to explain, I'm going to live demo this as well. You can basically take any scene and add another camera to it, or change it up to just add like a zoom in type effect. So we're going to go right back to the live demo mode. Boom. So you can see what I'm doing back here, right? No, install later. Yeah, why are you asking me stuff like that in the middle of the live stream? You guys are reading this stuff with me. Okay. So now we're in live demo mode. I'm on my main scene here on the upper left-hand corner, as you can see, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit these two little boxes and I'm going to duplicate this scene. So I just basically made a copy of the exact same thing. And now I'm on that scene. Can't even tell the difference. What I'm going to do in this scene is I'm going to go right back into those camera effects. And within this camera, right, you can see my colors and everything have already been adjusted. I'm going to go into zoom and pan. And this is a zoom option. So now I'm just going to zoom in. And I'm going to zoom in 20% for dramatic effect, right? But as you can see, it just zoomed in directly and now it's chopping off, you know, the top part of my head, which is not ideal. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on the actual box within the adjustment and move it around. So it allows me to set whichever setting I want. So if I want more of like the blank wall showing, rule of thirds, I want the Ecamm logo to come out in the background. All of that is set up through here, but I'm going to go ahead and just leave it dead center and kind of just center it, right? Boom. And then that's set. Now I'm able to close out this window and lock this scene. And now this zoomed in shot is locked to this scene. So now I can zoom back to the normal. And if I want to emphasize it, like, listen to what I'm about to tell you and go right back. That can be done that easily with Ecamm and the fact that we have a high quality, high resolution image, whether it's 1080 or 4K. But if you dip down to the 720, when you zoom in like this, that you're actually zooming in onto the pixels and losing quality, the lack of quality that you start with at 720 really makes it tough to add this extra zoomed in type shot and make it, you know, viable. And that's that. All right, Randy's got a question, and thanks for stopping in, Randy. Nice to see you, brother. Says, I use K for white balance. What would you recommend? By the way, hello, everyone. Well, what do you mean K for white balance? Like Kelvin? Because that's how we rate temperature of color, or better said, temperature of light. So in the settings within Ecamm, from what I was showing you, am I still on live demo? I am. Right here, right? The temperature and the tint, but more the temperature, right? Right here, you're given a number value, but this is basically your Kelvin scale. And, you know, like, traditionally, it would be kind of reversed, because on this particular setup, you know, the blue is to the left and like the orange is to the right. When on the scale, you know, just in North America, we read things from left to right. So when we progress in numbers, the smaller number is usually on the left-hand side. So the smaller numbers in the Kelvin scales, the 2600, 3200s, 4400s, those are the warmer colors. So those will be the ones more towards the yellows and towards the orange, the reds, right? More of like the magenta type. That's what you're going to find in those types of colors. And as you continue to go up on the Kelvin scale, 5600 Kelvin is what we considered perfectly balanced daylight, you know, like right in the middle between cool and warm. And then anything above the 5600 is going to start leading toward the cooler colors, right? The 6000, 6500, 7200 Kelvin, those are already reaching like hues of blue. So from what is showing you here, this is more like 7500 Kelvin, and this is more like 2600 Kelvin. But traditionally, when you're looking at the Kelvin scale, those colors will be flipped, because the lower numbers would usually start on the left hand and climb up towards the right, being more orange to blue. And here we're giving the option just a little bit in reverse. But if you saw the way that I adjusted it, the first thing I did was just check the brightness, right? And just wiggle the scale, right? Go to all extremes so that you can see what this slider does to your image. And right now we got a strobe effect. Oh, now we need the air horn. Dun, 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 dun. Anyway, that, and then, you know, you find where you like it and you leave it there. And then that will be your settings for that. You're good to go. And the rest is history. Boom. And now I'm going to close that, and I'm going to close out live demo mode. Yep. All right. So we spoke about City's Gone, Chris Brockhurst. Let me see if there's anything else here. Oh, yeah. So he's Kelvin. Yes, exactly. I know Kelvin. I got to make that shirt, man. You know, for photographers, do you know Kelvin? Because I know Kelvin. And that's the whole thing, knowing the temperatures of light. And that's something that, you know, just as a side note, I'm going to let you guys know it's something that I like to do to see, or kind of to always be like perfecting my skills, right? Upgrading your skills, but always trying to perfect those skills. So, you know, we use gray cards. I use an Expo, what was it called? An Expo disc? I think so. I think that's the name of it. I'm running a little bit of a blank right now. It's Expo Disc, which is basically a white balancing tool that you put on the front of your lens, and it is able to transmit the information as if you were holding a white card or a gray card or everything to get quick, fast white balance. So there's a lot of options out there, right, available for you to do that. But the reason why I bring that up is that even though I rely on that, right, I try to see if I can use my skills if I didn't have that item, or if I didn't have the gray card or my Expo disc. So my Expo disc, what I do is like I have it ready to be used, but I look at the scene, I look at my subject that I'm going to photograph, I look at the temperature of the light, and I make my adjustments on my camera, and I go, this is what I think my Expo disc is going to give me. You know, it's kind of like just a game that I'm playing within myself. I'm like, let me see if I can nail it if I did not have this piece of tech or equipment with me. And at that moment, I will go ahead and go, these are my adjustments. And I look at the light and I go, it's 5600 Kelvin. And then I use my Expo disc and it tells me it's 5700 Kelvin. Right? And I'll be like, boom, I was off by like that much. Meaning at the end of the day, if you're off by, you know, that little bit, you'd be able to easily adjust those colors in post. Right? So that's where, you know, it really comes into play. If you're completely off on your white balance and stuff, that's where it becomes more difficult to get the appropriate colors and skin tones in post. So, you know, I guess I'll leave you guys with that. It's just a fun little game that I like to play, even though I use my tools to basically grade my own work without the tools. So I try to do my best, and knowing the temperatures, the colors, and how to manipulate them as best I can without the tech. And then I use the tech to reference to see if what I was thinking was correct or completely off. Yep. Says, I like warmer looks. When I live stream, it's usually at 3600, around 6% on my key. Well, you see, that's another thing. If you're using your key at 3600, right, and that's a bit of a warm light, then to get accurate color, what you would do is try to match that Kelvin scale on your camera. So you would actually set your camera's ISO or Kelvin scale, not ISO, the Kelvin, right, your temperature in your camera to 3600, and all of your colors should be spot on when you are having them identical. Now, at that same time, if you want to take your natural color and warm it up a bit, that's where you get to adjust in post or within your camera to say, you know what, even though my light is warm, I'm going to set my my camera's temperature, right, reading its Kelvin scale to be up more towards the regular, more towards the 5600, right? So that it can actually pick up the warmthness of that light. Because if I were to put these lights completely warm, but then adjust my camera to that warmth, even though I see the difference in temperature and light here, it will not translate through the camera because they're matched. So it's like you're shooting the right range for the color that you're providing, so that colors are base and neutral. But if you want to show the incandescent type of lights, if you want to show that, that orangey type feel that you get from old school bulbs, and like what we call Edison bulbs, right? That orange feel, you're going to need to leave your camera a bit on more of the neutral side so that it can pick up the differences between those colors, between the warmth. Hopefully that makes sense. We're gonna continue here. Randy gave me the thumbs up. D's laughing, says my uncle's name is Kelvin. He's like, it's literally Kelvin. That's so cool. He said, but you don't want to know that, Kelvin. I'm not gonna recite the rest of it. But everyone, guys, we did it. Yes, another successful live stream. Thank you, as always, for taking the time and hanging out here with me. You guys make this, as always, the best part of my week. It's, things are tough. Life gets tough. There's so many, stresses outside of, your hobbies and things like that. And I am very fortunate to say that I have a group of camera junkies, like-minded individuals that hang out here with me every Saturday night. And I'm super grateful for every single one of you. So as always, guys, have a great, amazing week. I can't wait to do it all over again. A reminder, because I didn't do it, next week I will be at Orlando's World of Beer. And I'm most likely going to be broadcasting either from there or something close to there, depending on how the internet is sourced. I am going to be doing a 720 live stream because, like I mentioned before, this is the kit that I'm going to be carrying around. So I'm going to have my MacBook Air, my ZV-1F, and we're going to go live next Saturday from an undisclosed exact location, but it will be happening. I will be doing the get together at World of Beer next week from 8 to 10 to hang out. And then I'll be going live one way or another. And like I mentioned, might be a little delayed. So if you don't see me exactly at 10, might be 10:30, depending on where I need to set up. But as always, guys, have a great week. And I can't wait to see the ones that I will see live in person in Orlando next week, and all the rest online here on the Camera Junkie live stream. Guys, you are amazing. You are the best. And I can't wait to do it all over again. Have a great night, and I'll see you next week.